Thursday, November 17th. This is an end of the day SPY report, and you can see here we ended up with what looks like a potential green reversal type day where we opened up near the low of the day after gapping down and kind of closed near the high of the day. So for tomorrow, we'll anticipate a little bit of upside action. If we can get the two up bar, we'll look to target the previous highs up here as long as we stay above the midpoint of today. And the midpoint today kind of aligns with the monthly chart here, which for a moment, if we look at the big picture monthly chart, which we still are biased to the upside, for a moment that turned a little red temporarily, but you can see as of the close, we're still green. So, and there's still time left in the month to kind of start working towards those targets. In terms of the actual price action today, first let me say that I've been discussing for a while that even though we're in this trading range for 4 days, that the breakout up or down, could be significant. I was still always a little leery that any breakout to the downside would continue because number one, we're coming into just a fair value gap in an overall, short-term uptrend. So this could be an area where you can find support. It could have been anywhere between the low of that bar and the high of that bar, or the actual gap down here itself. As it turns out, at the moment, it looks like, we might not hit that actual gap, and that might be a target more once we eventually turn lower. Also on the weekly chart, I've been discussing for a while that I know we have this big green bar to overtake to the downside, and that's not easy to do. So this right now, we're certainly pausing after a few weeks up, but it doesn't mean the whole trend's going to turn down. So what kind of the indication today that you aren't really getting any follow through is right at the open. I mean, you could see the pre-market highs and lows were we're opening near the lower end of that range, but we never broke below that anywhere near the open. And we stay, yet at the same time, we stayed below the midpoint of this prior day. So we were still biased to the downside temporarily. So what happened was the very first bar on this open moved green, and then we did have a bit of a green to red move. So let's say you decided to go short here aggressively. This is actually kind of a failure, but if you look at it, it moved above the high of the previous bar, got to the halfway point of that bar. So I'm sure on the 5-minute chart, if you were looking at it closely, which it might be hard to zoom in, yeah, I mean, in here, this could have been a short right here on this 2 up, 2 down, anticipating breaking out the lows of the day and the pre-market lows, and it never got there. So this would have ended up, if you try to trade like that with this, directly on this index, once you had the green bar here and started back up kind of by the midway point of the first bar, you had to take a small loss on that type of trade. At that point, it broke through the intraday high. And that became a little bit of conflict there. On one hand, you're below the midpoint of yesterday, so you're thinking down. On the other hand, intraday structure is starting up. So the way at that point, once you break the intraday high, you're looking to get short again is if you take out these lows, the first bar lows, and it started coming down here. If we would have just paused in here and started lower, that could have been the signal to get short. But in this case, and knowing maybe this fourth bar was the high of the day, but in this case, we turned green and started 2 up again, and that sort of set the tone that this day was kind of failing to move lower right out of the gates. And again, never had a red bar below pre-market action here, and that's what you're always looking for. Same thing on the upside, you generally want green bars above the pre-market highs. So anyway, we ended up going up most of the day. Where did we reach? Once you're kind of way below the midpoint of the prior day and you're getting an up, conflicting kind of up day, even though in a down environment, you kind of target this red bar here or the yellow line here or yesterday's close. You're not going to really necessarily, unless you get to the halfway point of the prior day, you're not really going to target the prior day's high. So it reached up there and then it pulled back a little bit and then, kind of came up towards the end. So we closed with a green bar heading into tomorrow. This could be definitely a sign to end the week that we head up tomorrow. We'll be biased that way, see if opening price action gets us that way. And then at that point, we'll see how this weekly bar closes. It looks like it's just more of a pause bar, and you can certainly have that. I'll look at some other examples. Well, there was one in here. You come up and then you have a little bit of a pause bar, but you can still continue up. So until this weekly bar really reverses to the downside, I'm still biased to the upside as we've discussed. Monthly targets up here, and we'll just see if this is just a week that was maybe a little tricky to trade in terms of the fact that we really weren't getting follow through. and we really weren't breaking down. We were staying in a range here. And to me, this, if we get a 2 up tomorrow, this kind of shows that we had this 4-day range that you failed to break to the downside. And then once we come back up through it, we should be testing the highs again. So I'm going to stay biased that way, and let's just see, how things open tomorrow and how the week ends.